This is the UPIC Scope Management by myself, Mark Agina, also my friends Andre Obispo, Archana Ravi, Ricardo Carrillo, and Jesus Garcia. In this presentation, we will be talking about the scope management plans for the future of UPIC, how everything is going to be delivered, how the product is going to be uh, created, the objectives of our goal, the criteria that we have to meet so that we can achieve that goal. This presentation is going to have a lot of terms and notations referenced from PM book, and we will be talking about three main things in this presentation. First of all, I would like to say that this presentation refers to UPIC, which is implemented by this group, which is now officially called Thunder Force. The project's scope statement is a description of the project scope, major deliverables, assumptions, and constraints that we will be talking about in this scope. Project scope statement is also included in the project documents folder. Everything in here will be head to head with what we have with our SOW. So this scope was sought out of a book or a guide called A Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, E6 edition, which was published in 2017. And so we used multiple things as references from the guide, and so we used references from chapter 4, 5, 10, and 11. So from chapters 4, we used project charter, assumption log, project management plan. From chapter 5, we used scope management plan, requirements, and documentation. And from chapter 10, we used communications management plan, and chapter 11, risk register. All of this is with the author of PMI, so that we are all familiar with the terms, notations, and abbreviations of with this presentation. I'd like to go over some of the words that we have used, not just in our presentation, but in our SOW as well. I'm going to go over some definitions of the words as well as examples that we have inputted in our SOW. So we can start off with acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria is a set of conditions that is required to be met before deliverables are accepted. Our acceptance criteria is testable. Criteria also is clear and concise. You can basically say it's like it's not even. I was gonna say it's you can say it's debugging at one point where you can test the product, but even before testing the product itself, you can create a prototype and you can just basically make pictures, I guess you could say, pictures of the application, how it would look like. You could put buttons in those pictures, and so you would act and behave as if you were the user, so that before putting all this hard work into creating this product, you will be able to test it to see if the user will be satisfied with the product or enjoy the product or have any sort of entertainment with the product. Assumptions, a factor in the planning process that is considered to be true, real, or certain without proof or demonstration. So nothing to be theorized, only planned processes that are going to be for sure in the planning process of the deliverable. So constraints are a limiting factor that affects execution of project, program, portfolio, or process. Constraints such as skilled labor, sometimes it's hard to find people who meet the requirements of who you're looking for. For our product, I would say one constraint might be I wouldn't say it would be into skilled labor, but maybe funding. We might have some issues with funding later on in our project. We might need to seek out stakeholders that will help us pay off maybe Google that might ask for money because we are using their API. Another things that can be considered such constraints are also customer approvals, as I have said, funding, even the purchase of software, and etc. So customer approvals also a big issue because you're doing this mainly because um, you want the customer to be happy. If the customer is not satisfied with your product, then you're not satisfied with your product. Also, the stakeholder themselves are not going to be satisfied with your product. Therefore, it is just going to be like it would lead just to entropy at that point for your project. Purchasing software as we will get bigger. This might be a problem too for our um, project, but that is if we take a different route than now. Um, but so far, it seems like open source codes out there are really helping us with the creation of this product. Funding, as I've said, might be an issue later on also, that we might need to pay for maybe not just Google, maybe for paying to use logos or stuff like that from restaurants or fast food chains. That has to be also looked into later on. Deliverables. So a deliverable is any unique and verifiable product which results or capable to perform a service that is required to be produced to complete a process, phase, or project. So far, what we have for deliverables are the statement of work, scope or management statement. That we have those things right now we can offer. We have been able to present them. Enterprise environmental factors (EEF) is conditions not under the immediate control of the team that influence, constrains, or direct the project program or portfolio. So there are some certain conditions that you have to meet so that you can continue into multiple phases of your project. Not this whole project is just not one phase where it's you start and end it. There's obviously going to be prototype. You have a prototype. Then if we do like how the prototype is, we will go to phase 2 where we actually begin to do spikes and research the product. Then we go to phase 3 where we can actually start creating the product itself with an IDE that we have to use. Phase 4, we begin to test our product before launch. And then phase 5 is launch, where we would launch the product. This is speaking on the terms of a software engineering team. If we would set this scope entirely based on not just software engineering team, but as well as management, business management team, also maybe other components or headquarters of a team. This phase structure would look a lot longer than now. Before launching it, we would have to write terms and conditions that will allow us to release such a product without having to face legal action and stuff like that. We would have to have so much to go into these phase parts of the project that this project will be longer than 5 to 10 years to launch it. Our objective, something toward which is to be directed, a strategic position to be attained, a purpose to be achieved, a result to be obtained, a product to be produced or service to be performed. Our objective is to deliver an entertaining product that allows the user to choose a restaurant slash fast food chain from a set radius from 1 mile to either 10,000 mile, and it will allow the user to have fun, even incur curiosity, also maybe excitement. And when I say excitement, I say it with like maybe the user, for example, has a small family chain, have a small family owned restaurant that he really enjoys. So he sets the radius to that where that restaurant is located, and maybe he just plays the game until he gets that restaurant because he's so eager to eat their food, so that it's kind of like the jump start. So it makes the user feel like, okay, I got it, I'm gonna go ahead there, or I'm gonna order delivery, or wherever the family-owned restaurant itself offers as their service. Um, Things like that is what help us achieve our objective. Next one is organizational process assets. It's plans, processes, policies, procedures, and knowledge bases that are specific to and used by the performing organization. Organizational process assets is basically just the combination of acceptance criteria all the way down to what I talked before is objective. It's just a combination of all these things, even the things that are below it, which is product, requirement, and stakeholder. It's just a whole different set of the things I've been talking about so far. Product is an artifact that is produced, is quantifiable, and can be either an end item in itself or a component item. Additional words for product are material and goods. The product itself will come out of a deliverable. Deliverable is basically just a set steps for the product. The way you can look at our project is in two different ways. If our project does end up going big, our project itself is an end item. Actually, I would say, never mind, it would be a component item, as we would be working with delivery service systems or companies such as Grubhub, DoorDash, or whatever that are seeking out such a product. Or it would be an end item itself if we don't go that far ahead, where we would have to implement our own delivery system or carry out system, or basically would have to be a competing company against DoorDash, Grubhub, against any delivery company out there. Requirements are just condition or capability that is necessary to be present in a product, service, or result to satisfy a business need. One requirement I would say that we need for UPIC specifically, for at least the production of UPIC, is Android Studios. Android Studios is one of the main environmental IDEs that we use to create this product, and so it is the one that is one requirement that allows us to satisfy a business need. Stakeholders. Stakeholders are an individual, group, or organization that may be affected by, or perceive itself to be affected by a decision, activity, or outcome of a project, program, or portfolio. Stakeholder are very important to the team because they help fund, and not just fund, but help us perceive the future of the application or the product itself. They are the reason where we'd have to create a scope, a presentable scope to be the least, statement of work, all these things so that the stakeholder can be confident in what they are about to invest in. So these are some terms and notations and abbreviations that we have went through.
So we have some more terms, notations, and abbreviations. We have PMBOK, which stands for the Project Management Body of Knowledge. And we also have WBS, which stands for the Work Breakdown Structure. So for the product scope description, we have that UPick is an app specifically designed to allow the user to randomly choose a restaurant within their chosen distance. This will give the user relief from the uncertainty of choosing where to eat when they are unsure of where to eat. People sometimes face the issue of being unable to choose where they want to eat, so the proposed solution is a random number generator, but for restaurants that are nearby the user. This will alleviate the issue of being uncertain of where to eat for anyone who uses the app.
The major element of this project will obviously be the finalized version of the app will be the main deliverable, but along the way we're going to have multiple versions, perhaps a few prototypes, and a few of the key milestones that we're going to hit is going to be the implementation of the Google Maps API to get the user's location and the random restaurants, and then the actual implementation of the randomizer, which will then select one of these given restaurants. And we're going to go into the timeline of that a little bit later in the presentation, but those are kind of just the key milestones that we're going to hit in terms of deliverables. Now here's a look at the acceptance criteria. So this is a detailed acceptance process. So essentially we'll know when we succeeded in the application when a user can be prompted to choose the distance they're willing to travel. And then based on this distance, the Google Maps API scans the nearby location for restaurants, and then they are then given a random restaurant based on that list, and then from there they're given the option to either get that food or given directions, perhaps through a third-party app, given the options to order from there. But that'll be kind of like what we envision to happen, like from A to B. That'll kind of be a full success when we finish this. Now let's look at the project exclusions. So without funding, we might not be able to keep the application published in the Google App Store. So when we get to that point, that's something that we have to figure out in terms of keeping it published. And then if we were to sell our app to a delivery service company such as Grubhub or DoorDash, they might not accept it because our app is available for Android users only, which brings us to our next point. A need for UPick to be compatible with Apple's iOS can cause a setback for development, as all team members need to be familiar with Objective-C. So, it's going to be hard to transition from, Android only to the iOS format because a lot of us don't know that. So that's something that might keep us from making deals with like a third party. But it's something that we're definitely going to look into. So this is a requirement document, specifically the requirement traceability matrix. So the first thing is that we need to create an app login page, and this will create security for the users because obviously everyone's login will be unique, thus eliminating the possibility for two users to kind of see their own data. This will be expanded upon the work breakdown structure 1, and the status of this is currently still ongoing. And the second thing is that we want to add a library to the app, which will make the navigation easier for the users, and this will be expanded upon in the work breakdown structure 2, and this is also currently ongoing.
We will now be talking about the work breakdown structure for UPick. Our diagram here completely breaks down the work required into making this app into the simplest chunks that anyone could understand. As you can see from the diagram, from the very beginning our milestones are as followed. And as a little side note, we have a more detailed explanation for each milestone, which we will show later, but for now, as you can see, that we will first design the app, then move towards implementing Google Maps, then the RNG needed to make the app work, some bug fixes or patches if needed, then we finalize the app. Afterwards, we move towards putting UPick in the App Store, then lastly, we move to getting reviews and making updates based on those reviews. As I said before, I will go more in depth as to what we mean for each milestone in the WBS. For app designed, we expect both the front end and the back end of the app to be designed so that we have an idea as to how the app may look and operate. For implementing Google Maps, we expect Google Maps to be implemented into the app by using the Google Maps API, therefore finishing half of the app's function. For implement restaurant RNG, we expect an algorithm that can make a list of nearby restaurants and randomly choose a restaurant from that same list. For bug fixes and patches, this is where we expect to clean out any sort of blemishes the app currently has and to make things smoother for the finalization. For finalizing the app, this is where we will be doing our final checks to see if both Google Maps and the RNG are working as they should, and this also acts as a final check before we send the app out to the store. For sending the app to the store, this one is self-explanatory, but just to explain, this milestone is when we put the app in the store, and this also includes all the necessary legal actions required to do so. Then finally, we have the review gathering and implementing updates in the app, which is our final milestone, and one that would carry on for the lifespan of UPick. This is where we would gather user reviews and create updates or fixes, whether minor or major, for the app so that we may improve it. And finally, this is our timeline for the WBS. And as you can see from the point we begin until we finish implementing the RNG, we have set those to be done within 2 weeks. That's because we will be working with the Agile methodology, but after that we have decided to put in some more time into making bug fixes and finalizing the app. From then on, we send the app to the store, and finally, as I've said before, the rest of UPick's lifespan will be geared towards collecting reviews and making updates based on those reviews. And that is our WBS.